Came out today to microchip the cats and give them their rabies vaccines and kind of do general exams because they haven't been to the vet probably since they were babies. Squeaker, the black one who's over there dozing, they had quite excitement today. We adopted her from a vet where we lived at the time, and she came spayed and neutered. Mocha, I adopted her. We found her on the beach, and she could fit in the palm of my hand, so we bottle fed her. And then when she got old enough, we took her to the vet and had her spayed. And they were both about 9, so they haven't been to the vet in many, many, many years. But I wanted to get the microchip because we now live in an apartment where there might be times when a maintenance guy will be in here and they could accidentally get out. And we live in a nice complex, but it's off a very busy road, and we live like towards the front of the complex. So I'm always, mindful of how busy it is out there. If anything happens, if they ever got out, that they not only have their collars, but they also are microchipped. After the vet and the vet tech left, I kind of laughed to myself because I'm not a people person, but when I'm around other animal lovers or if I'm around professionals that are, in that field, that are vets or vet techs or whatever, I am so much more open and I talk a lot more about like crazy shit. Like obviously all of us have heard of rabies, but I didn't really know how deadly it was. Like I figured that if you get bitten by an animal that is for sure found to be infected by rabies, or if you have a pet that hasn't been vaccinated that gets bitten by some animal that has rabies, I just thought, okay, well, it's painful, you have to get the vaccine, but you can recover. Well, my vet told me that for animals and people alike, that if you get bitten by an animal that is found to be infected by rabies, that you have a high chance of death for animals and people, apparently. Not to say that you absolutely cannot survive, but it also depends on where you're bitten. She said that if you have a pet that is bitten like on a limb, they have a higher chance of survival versus if they're bitten on the face. And it depends on how quickly after you get the vaccine after you're bitten by an infected animal. And you also, like, the pet has to be quarantined for a certain amount of time, obviously, because so they don't infect other animals. And it was just this whole thing, and I just was like, oh, fuck. And then I never gave my cats heartworm preventative because they're indoor cats. And a long time ago, I read that cats, like, their body can actually, like, just their immune system protects them from it a lot better, so they have less of a chance of being infected the way that dogs do. That's true as far as cats go, that they're infected a lot less, that their body can fight it off, but they can also still get infected, and it doesn't go to the heart. They're called heartworms, but they don't go to the heart in cats. A lot of times they go into the lungs and cause damage and cause them to have asthma, or they'll go into the brain. And if they do that, if their body doesn't fight it off, if that happens and they get infected in other ways, that there's a high likelihood of death and it's not treatable. And so I'm just like, I had no idea about all this stuff. I had no clue about the severity of heartworms and rabies, in particular with cats. But with rabies, like, I knew it was serious if you got infected, but I had no idea that in 2017 still that it could be like such a high chance of death. Like, that was so surprising to me. And then I also was talking to the vet about my experience a couple weeks ago, where I had to, I took some video of the actual cat that I saved that I had to run through traffic to get. God, ugh. But I was telling them about it because they weren't at the office when that happened, and they actually updated me on the cat. The cat is, except for being a little underweight, was a healthy cat. They're feeding it, and so it's gaining some weight, and it's still kind of skittish around people. But they said, it's a beautiful cat, and that it's doing well. So that was good to hear. But I was just telling them about the whole ordeal, everything that I had to go through to get the cat. How it, like, burrowed under this dude's, like, engine and was this whole thing. And afterwards, though, I didn't talk about it, but I was talking to them about it. I became so severely like traumatized and stressed out, and in retrospect thinking about how I could have been hurt, I could have been run over, I could have been killed. Like, traffic, I was in a turning lane that was at a stoplight, so we already weren't moving, and then somebody had gotten out, thankfully, to help me to keep oncoming traffic from coming. But it could have ended so badly, and I could have been hurt or killed. The animal could have been hurt or killed, and just afterwards, I just became so stressed out about what could have happened that I got kind of depressed. Because I really, like, I was obviously, like, mindful of the fact that I was in traffic and I was looking for cars, but I was also panicked, and I was, like, frantically trying to get this cat to safety, that I really was not thinking about my own safety. I was only thinking about the cat's safety. And to people that aren't extreme animal lovers like I am, that makes no sense to them. Like, they think that's crazy. But when I see an animal, like I said, when I saw the kitten run past the cars in front of me, I just freaked out and threw my car in a park and put my hazards on. At least I had the forethought to do that. And then, you know, kind of just looked to make sure cars still weren't moving in the turning lanes and ran to go get it. Definitely after the fact was really stressed out and going through all the, oh my God, what if this had happened? What if that had happened in my mind? Because I'm the kind of person that I always think about what could go wrong. And I definitely had those moments where I was like, oh my God, like, someone maybe wouldn't have seen me. I felt like everybody saw me. I felt like everybody saw what was happening. But if someone wasn't paying attention, or if somebody just didn't care, I could have been run over, you know, when I was trying to, like, grab a cat from under a car, or I don't know. It was really bad. And then I think I said on the video that I took previous to this, when I actually had the cat, before I took the cat into the vet, when I was sitting in the parking lot at the vet's office, and I, like, documented the cat, like, when it happened. There was an old lady that had, like, I think she was in a turning lane, and she was, like, basically just going around the situation, and she stopped as I was, like, kneeled down by the car trying to get the cat out of the car, who had by that point crawled up underneath the tire of a car. And she was like, can I encourage you to get out of the road? And I'm like, no, like, there's a situation here. And she's like, a cat's not worth your life. And that pissed me off, but I was so focused on saving the cat that I wouldn't have, I didn't do probably what I would have normally. I probably would have really laid into that old bitch, because I just feel like it speaks to somebody's character. Not that I'm, like, trying to, like, talk myself up and say I'm such a good person, but I think that it tells, like, when I see stories, like, when there's a flooding situation, when, like, there's a hurt, I live in Florida, so this is the first example that comes to mind, but, like, if there's a hurricane, and, you know, there's people trying to evacuate, and they see an animal, not even their own pet, but, like, a dog or something, or a cat that's, like, trapped, and is going to die, could drown, could whatever, and people work together to save that animal, because it's a life. It is still a life. A life is a life. And you might inconvenience yourself or possibly put yourself into harm, but, like, if you can get everybody to safety, even the animals, which I value animal life very highly. I mean, I'm not a vegetarian. I've tried being a vegetarian before. That's a whole other thing. But, I do what I can. Like, if I'm walking, I don't step on an ant. Like, I will go out of my way to save a caterpillar in a doorway. Like, I can't even, I get upset if somebody, like, goes, like, if I'm in an office and there's, like, I just started the job where I'm at now, there was a spider, like, a very, very small spider, wasn't hurting anybody, crawling across the desk. My supervisor went smack, and I was like, please do not do that in front of me. It's not hurting anybody. So, like, the other night, I was at the table back there with Danny. We were having dinner. Well, I think I was eating and he was on his computer, and there was this tiny little spider. And I, like, didn't bother it, and it literally just sat on the table and chilled with us. When I first went into the apartment, there was a spider, and I tried to look it up to see if it was venomous, because I had no idea. I think it was alright, but it chilled in the apartment for like a while until like it finally left. But I just was like, alright, cool, well, we're just gonna coexist. Because I didn't want to, I mean, if it was poisonous, if it was like a black widow or something, like, I would probably get Danny to take care of it. But, you know, I wouldn't, you know, want anything that was going to hurt my animals or me or Danny. Because it went really well. My cats are both about 9, and they checked out their teeth, and they said their teeth look great, that she would never guess they were 9. We got them microchipped. We got their rabies vaccination. The reason why we had the vet come out to the apartment is because Mocha, that one, I don't know if you can see her, but she does not like to be picked up. She becomes very aggressive when she's handled. She was, like I said, we got her when she could fit in the palm of our hand. We found her on the beach. She was part of a feral cat colony. Bottle fed her. I'm pretty much, she'll tolerate me most of all. She loves me. She does genuinely, but it's on her own terms. And if I fuck with her and try to get her to do something she doesn't want to do, she's not above like batting at me or joke. I just got home, but on the same highway where I rescued the kitten a couple weeks ago, I was at a stoplight and I look over into the lane going the opposite direction as I'm going, and I see this car stopped, and there was a car behind them that was stopped, and this guy was up underneath a car, and I was like, what the fuck is he doing? So I'm sitting there, and he's got like a kid. It was an SUV, and his kid was in the SUV, and his the female that was with him. So this guy was underneath the car, and first I'm like, is he like fixing his car? That's kind of dangerous. But then I was like, oh my god, I think he's rescuing an animal. Like, it just looked like that to me. So the female that he was with ran him back into the SUV. The kid stayed in the SUV. And she got like a towel or something and gave it to him. And I was able to see before, like, my light turned green. But just as the light turned green, I was about to go, they pulled out a fucking kitten that had crawled up into his damn car. It is an epidemic. Like, I know it's spring and... ma'am? Don't claw the furniture. Have some pride in your home. That's how she feels about the situation. The same street, like, I guess there's like a whole bunch of kittens having, or a whole bunch of cats having babies on this one highway. And it is such a busy highway. But I'm so glad that these people stopped to rescue the cat. Also, so fucking happy that didn't happen to me. Because if I had left my house later, that could have fucking happened to me again. On lunch, and it is a rainy day, which I love these days, as I've said a million times. There's like a flood warning too, which those always kind of freak me out. I've been fortunate enough to never like really have to worry about that in terms of where I live, but some areas around here can get very flooded. Like, I've known some people that have had their houses ruined, and like one person had to be rescued by boat. Also scary, last night before bed, the local newspaper had posted, and it showed up in my newsfeed that a woman had been carjacked in the Olive Garden parking lot here in my town. And that freaked me out because I go to Olive Garden at least like about once a week. She said that, I guess she worked there, and she said that the parking lot was full of cars, and these two guys came up to her and carjacked her, basically. I live in fear of this shit. Like, especially when it happens in your town. And if it happens in your town, in a part of town that you don't go into, it's still scary, but like you feel removed from it in a way. But if it happens somewhere that you go to all the time, it could just easily happen to you. It could just easily happen anyways, regardless. But when you hear about it happening, and this is in a busy, like, it's in a, you know, good part of town. It's in a part of town that's always busy. I found this poor little guy in the breezeway at my apartments, and he's shaking. It's a moth. I'm gonna set him over here in the shade, because obviously I guess moths come out at night. And I didn't want anybody to step on him. First I didn't know if he was a leaf or what, but his back, like, wings, look like they might be damaged. I don't really know. But, oh, there he goes. It let up just a little bit, but there's a tropical storm. I think it's Tropical Storm Cindy. I hate that feeling of, like, being wet in your clothes. To come home early due to the tropical storm. Tropical Storm Cindy. It's gonna be so weird when I don't live in Florida anymore and I don't have to deal with hurricanes and the like. So I just went and got some Tijuana flats and came home, and probably going to do some online shopping and eat and watch TV and watch the weather. I did get tornado warnings, so hopefully nothing comes of that. Nothing much is happening right now. It's just pretty windy. It's not currently raining, but I'm sure it will be raining shortly. And my patio, I love it. It's screened in, but when it rains really hard, everything gets wet. excited about getting out of this car because it is so windy that that stop sign is like flailing about. I'm not sure what's the deal with this tropical storm. I don't know if it's still going on or what. Maybe there's like some residual stuff going on, but it hasn't, I mean, it's like rained a little bit today, but it's like a fish and wildlife dude that just parked next to me. He's like checking to make sure all his like many doors and shit are locked. What the hell does he have in there? Something I've been kind of curious about is like if you have to pull over for an oncoming funeral procession. And in the South, I live in the South, I live in Florida, the Panhandle section of Florida. I'm not talking about if you're in the way or you're like, I'm not talking about cutting through a funeral procession or anything like that. I'm just talking about you're going one way and a funeral procession is coming the other way. And a lot of people in the South, I've heard it's different in the North. I've heard in the North they don't do this. I haven't lived in the North for a long time. I lived in Maryland a long time ago and I was like 12, so I don't remember. But in the South, like people will just pull over and literally sit there until the funeral procession ends. And I get that it's out of respect. I get it. I sympathize as well. But I was wondering, you know, when you see people doing one thing, but like you really just feel like you just want to keep on driving because you don't really understand, like practically, like it's just, I don't see what that does for anybody. Like I've been meaning to find out what is the actual law on this. Like, am I required to pull over and basically stop traffic for a funeral procession? And I only clicked on one article. I want to read some more and kind of see, but the article that I read is basically, you know, like obviously, you know, barring actually affecting the funeral procession itself, like you obviously, I mean, common sense tells you you don't like cut through it, you don't like interfere with it. But it's the article, the first article that I came across said that you are not legally required to pull over for a funeral procession, and actually it can be dangerous to do that. And I can vouch for that because I was on this major highway near our university here, and it's like a 4 to 6 lane highway, and there was a funeral procession coming the opposite direction I was going, and I almost like plowed into this guy in front of me because I think other people were stopped in front of him, but he immediately slammed on his brakes, and I did too, and I'm like, what the fuck? So I look, and it's a fucking funeral procession. This is a highway. It's not a 2-lane road. It's like 6 lanes. And what does that do for anybody? I don't understand. Like, it's ridiculous. There was almost a pileup because people were slamming on their brakes, going at a high rate of speed. I mean, I think that the speed limit, like people go like 50 miles an hour on that highway. It's really interesting that different parts of the country, probably different parts of the world even, you know, do it differently. But it's interesting that within a country, like just the northern part of it versus the southern part of it seem to, from what I've heard, I haven't like read definitively to see that the northern part of the US does it differently, but at least in the South, that's what they do.
Comes alive, and I wake up in the warm sunlight. I've been brain-fried, electrified, affected and ejectified, fever sectified, and fed pesticide. My face is all battered and bruised, baby. Red wine, green wine, stuck them right through me. So hear my very word, and exercise a little cruise with dealing with humor. If I'm gonna eat somebody, 'Cause greedy human beings will always land their hand with the destruction of this worthless jungle. And what a beautiful machine they